Now we're taking mechanical water and domestic water. We can't mix the two because it's not good, right? So you're going to see behind each skid is a little red bucket. Now those red buckets have glycol in them. So I typically recommend when you have one of these systems, which I prefer, take a Sharpie and you mark the line. I can mark it for you if you'd like. Get some buildings that don't want it marked, and that's fine. Use tape, anything. The biggest reason is the visual. The job of those little things is to make up the glycol that's missing. So air happens, you know, things over time, and it's in startup, air is our biggest killer, okay? Once they're made up, realistically, they should stay at the level that they're at. If you see them start to drop, okay, then that means either you got a pipe that broke, someone stood on it, maybe someone opened up a valve, a relief, or whatever. So it's important to mark, or at least keep a mental note if you don't want to mark, each one of the levels on those. If you see a drop, then we got to look, all right, where is the red glycol? Where's it going? And usually it's going to stain the white insulation. So either it's in here or it's outside. You'll be able to see it. So it's a good visual indicator, but it's very important to keep that in, because if that diminishes and you lose your glycol pressure, the units outside overheat. When they overheat, the safety is a shutdown, because you don't want to blow the compressor or anything like that. And then that unit it goes out of the sequence. Okay. Now we are monitoring everything on the sequencer, which again, another component I'll show you. There's a lot here. So if one unit goes down, it doesn't mean your building's going to lose hot water. You still have another 2 units. And even if you lose 2 of them, the way that this system works is realistically it's an N+1. So it's 1 unit plus another one that can actually keep up. So you have 1 unit that can maintain your building theoretically. In a peak demand, a second one will come in, let's just say, because right now your domestic cold water is like 38 degrees. It's really cold. So a second one will assist it, let's say, if a whole floor, because we actually demonstrated this today. He opened up pretty much all of the 6th floor, which was a very large pull in the tanks. He had all 3 units kick on, and they all did their job. 2 units was more than sufficient, and then 1 unit can keep up over time. But let's just say if it's a real big pull and everybody in the building starts using it, you'll start to see some temperature drop. Okay. But realistically, it's an N+1, and then again, if another unit drops out, you still have 2 to work. The sequencer, which is the controller, and I keep referencing that, so you have 3 units outside. You don't want the same one to turn on and turn off, turn on and off, so you're going to kill it. So what it does is it looks at compressor run hours. So each unit's got its own compressor, and it's going to see, okay, I just turned this one on. This one's satisfied, turned off. Now, do I need to turn this back on again to equal out the hours, or can I start alternating? So in this case, when we were doing commissioning, we noticed that unit 2 had the lowest compressor hours. So it had only 9 hours, while the other ones had 12 and 13. We found out that there was a flow issue, which we corrected, and now the unit's been running just fine. Ever since then, now it's going to want to run 2 to build the hours up on it, and then it's going to then put everything in alternation. So it's going to go this one on, after this one turns on, then you're going to get 2, and then it's going to move. So based on duty cycle, okay? So then after that, it's going to try evening up the hours. If, let's just say the pull's really big and this unit can't keep up for whatever reason, let's just say all the tank's empty, then it's going to kick on the next one with the lowest amount of hours. I'll show you how to log in if anyone has a computer, or if I see there's a Cat 6 wire, so I'm assuming they might be doing a BMS. I don't know. Okay. Because then you can see everything and you don't even have to come up here, which is very nice. All right, now going back to it. So first thing, the glycol, that's taking the hot water from the units outside and we're putting it onto the mechanical side over here. I like visuals because there's a lot of different terminology here. So I always think that I look at the skids, red pumps. Red pumps are going to be your hottest pump. So that's mechanical side only. It's going to be 180 degrees coming from it. You got red pump, you got red glycol. So nice, easy visual, mechanical water coming in. So we're taking in our 180 degrees. So what's happening is that you have this, which I got to see why that's closed. We're heating up things, right? So when things heat up, thermal expansion, right? So any idea why that's closed? This?
Oh, I did. I put on.
Oh, can I? Okay.
Yeah.
So this, when you heat things up, right, water expands. We need that open. So you see what happened when that was just closed?
Yeah, it just went in there and then it spilled out through the drain.
So that's coming right out through the drain, I can't see it. Yeah, it's coming right out through this TMD. You have to look and see if that's charged right.
Yeah,
So,
See that? Be careful because now it's coming out on the floor too. Be
yeah,
careful.
it's gonna
Oh,
go to
okay.
the drain.
so we need this open because now with these units running, everything's gonna
starting up.
expand.
Back up, back up, back up, back up.
Okay.
It's done.
So remember how I mentioned before the TMD getting stuck open? This is one of the cases. So that's why I always like to keep one in spare. So he was able to jog it, but just in case if it gets stuck open, you don't want to be down for something silly like that where you can isolate. So we want this tank to be open because once you start exceeding pressure, because we're heating things up so much, that's where that comes in. Very important. All right, so if you start to see that drip, you want to take a look at that guy. Maybe the bladder pop,
Okay.
anything like that. Okay? Now let's go back to it. So red pump, this is going to be our primary. Okay? Both of these pumps, if you want to know if they're running, you can come look at it visually, see that little red light. Okay? So you're going to have both running. Okay? When this thing's running and we're actually producing heat, there's going to be two scenarios where you see only one light. Okay? But in this case, two lights running, we're producing hot water. We have 180 degrees coming in. And then, so this pipe, very hot, right? Coming back, let's see, what do we got? Coming back, we have, that's ice bowl, I'd probably say that's about 40, 50 degrees. So that's good. We're getting rid of all that heat. We're giving you 180, and you can put your hand on that. You can't put your hand on that, 'cause that's 180 degrees. You can put your hand on that. I'll show you again on the computer, but it's probably about a 100-degree delta, which means a difference in temperature. So where's that heat going? It's going into the domestic hot water. So our domestic cold that we're pulling off the tanks, this is really cold right now. I can keep my hand on that. But if you look just right, the pipe next to it, it's 160 degrees. So that's where all that heat's going. Okay, so we're pulling off that tank over there, excuse me, that tank right there, and it's coming into this line.
To that one.
To this line. And there's another little pump right here.
Lines is
Yep.
making it
And
into
then we're
hot.
pushing it right out.
Okay.
Now, how do we do that? These little exchangers.
That should always be left alone.
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
Leave the exchangers
Okay.
alone, everything's gonna do its thing. But that's how we take mechanical hot water from the heat pumps and we put it in domestic water. So we can actually exchange that heat. So I'm taking 180 and then I'm outputting 160, 165. And then where's that going? Into the tanks. So I'm taking that 165, which is going out on this line, into that hot tank. It's pulling in through all of them and pulling it off that cold tank into this line. And that's where this gold pump comes in. So two pumps, two separate systems. It's all part of one unit. Okay? Now both of these are running at a fixed speed. That's why I mentioned the lights. You look at the lights. Okay? In one situation where you'll come over here and you'll be like, hey John, or I'm thinking in my head, I only have one light on. I don't have the second one. Now what does that mean? That light labeled as primary controls this pump here. What it is that if these units sit idle for a while and they're not being used, building's not being used, no occupancy, but we get these really cold temperatures, the units are monitoring that constantly. And they're looking at the temperature of this unit, of these two pipes. If it sees that it's falling below 40 degrees, it runs this pump. And just this pump only, because it picks the heat up from the room and these exchangers and warms this glycol to prevent it from turning to slush. So glycol is not going to freeze, which is great, but when it gets down to certain temperatures, the viscosity, it becomes thick like syrup, right? We don't want that because it's not going to flow right. So we flow in between here, we pick up that heat to maintain that temperature. Okay? So that's the only case where you'll come over here, you'll see only one rib relay on. And all these do is relay, talking to a relay, turning the pumps on. And then these valves in themselves will also modulate. So you'll see on the skid, you're going to have two pumps, two valves. The valves are just opening and closing to try to get that set point of 170 degrees, in this case 169 degrees into the tank. Okay? So we saw that blow off, right? Because that was isolated. Now that's been corrected, it's now open again. you still have the same thing on each skid for the mechanical loop. We're superheating this glycol, and what happens when you superheat something in a closed loop where it's not being used, it expands and wants to blow off. So that's where these little TMPs are. So if you start seeing glycol come out of it, each one of these skids has a tank. The tank's got a gauge. The gauge's got a little Schrader valve, just like that. You can poke the Schrader valve with a marker if you want, with a pen or anything like that. So if you keep seeing this blow off, and then that keeps making up glycol, more than likely your tank's bad. So there's two sights on it. You can actually come around if you want. Each one's got the gauge set. The actual black arrow is going to be the gauge reading itself. The red is a follower, so it actually will see how much it spiked to. So if you see that little brass knob in the middle, that knob will rotate the red dial. So the red dial is supposed to follow the black dial to where it is, right? Below that, you see that little white lens in the hex. So if you're going to look below the gauge, so below the gauge, there's going to be a little white hex with a glass. If that glass goes red, then the tank bladder is faulty, and then you have to replace the bladder. So it's a visual indicator to come over here and be like, okay, what's going on? What did this guy tell me among all the other crap he just told me? That's making up, that's blowing off. Why is it doing it? It's because the expansion tank's bad. Because the expansion tank's bad. We don't want that, right? If we keep doing that, we're dumping glycol, we're making up glycol, and it's just going to be a constant circle until this has lost all of its glycol. Okay? So, makes sense taking hot water, hot mechanical water, putting into domestic water. Can't mix the two because glycol is not good for us, right? Again, those things are standalone with their own controller. They just plug right into the outlet on each skid. It's a copy and paste. And all it is like a little booster. It'll see a pressure drop to about 40, and then it's going to kick on and boost to 45. If you constantly hear it run, each one of these is a small bleed down right here, this knob. You can turn it 90 degrees counterclockwise. It'll bleed down the vent, and it'll recharge. Okay, so they're just little standalone glycol pumps, that's all. And that's pretty much self-contained, don't have to worry about that. Does it make sense about the skid before I start moving over to the units and the sequencer? Yeah. Yeah? Makes sense? Okay.